So we must do two things, two great things together, to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself. So we have those gifts of spirit now breaking in on us on the level of Christian Science. And what is it that is being brought to us and given to us? We see that in the A. What is coming to us irresistibly, you see, as the Word, is that Spirit brings the purity of Spirit. That idea, purity, now is the second point in the order of the third degree. Remember that we had wisdom, and we said that that wisdom of mind was really indicating the first idea, the first quality or characteristic or idea that's breaking in on us in the third degree, and that we would give them their place value as the very first appearance in the A of each of the 7 synonymous terms. Everybody okay? Mm-hmm. Good. You know, I weighed that and reweighed that, and sometimes I felt that those ideas from the third degree should go in the science column. Sometimes I felt they should be somewhere else, that they might be the outcome, you see, of the working of the Christ translation and so forth. So that was a question within me and for me. As I said, I sometimes felt that it should be in science as the, so to say, the establishing of our understanding, you see, as God's own understanding of himself. And again, you can see that meaning is relational. Can you hear that? Mm-hmm. That it could be seen from the standpoint of science, you see, mm-hmm. because that third degree is the establishing of our understanding as God's own understanding of himself. Or it could be seen as an outcome. That would put them into the Christianity category of the 4. And so just reminding us that it's always a question of the orientation and what accentuation we want to give to something. And I chose the Word. I just chose to put them in the Word, and I hesitate to say, don't ask me why at this point. Somehow it's something about that initial breaking in, how the 7 come and state themselves as something completely new that defines our spiritual and scientific understanding. So that purity of spirit is coming upon the human, and spirit comes also and brings order. It brings order to us. Now we see that the very order of spirit itself comes to us and brings order to us. We see that is going on and on and on, really throughout the whole evolution of mankind. That the evolution of the spiritual idea is a story of the breaking in of greater and greater degrees of order, higher and higher order, more and more complexity, we would say. You know that even the sciences, as we have touched upon a bit so far, that even the sciences, small s, have been changed by this fact, by this question of order. You have a science, and I know that most of you know what I'm going to say, and you're familiar with this particular science, but we can remind ourselves that there is even a science small s that has been so much on the cutting edge, and it has all to do with order. And it's called the science of chaos. And that science of chaos is all about order. And you see that because there were a few individuals who loved that question and wouldn't drop it, wouldn't drop the anomalies about the questions of chaos and order that were seen throughout nature, that they kept asking, why don't we always see what we understand to be order? How do we justify? What do we do with all of the phenomena that is anomalous, that appears to be chaotic? So they pursued, you had that handful of individuals who loved that question of order and wanted to see more deeply into it. And because they pursued that enigma, something terrific began to emerge, a new understanding of nature and of order, you see, began to emerge. And at the same time, all the ordinary scientists, you have to really know Thomas Kuhn's terminology of ordinary scientists and extraordinary scientists, that the ordinary scientists are those scientists that are in a particular field, in a particular paradigm of understanding, and are satisfied with the status quo. They don't want to rock the boat. They want to keep going. They feel everything's been seen that needs to be seen. There isn't anything more to see. This is the ordinary scientist in a paradigm. A paradigm meaning a model, a certain model of understanding. Say that physics has its model of understanding, and psychology has its model of understanding, and we have our model of understanding. And every paradigm has its ordinary scientists and its extraordinary ones. And it's the extraordinary ones that will lead it on, that will break through the old paradigm and bring in a new paradigm, a new model of understanding, a higher model of understanding. So the ordinary scientists, you see, would just take all those anomalies and sweep them under the carpet and say, forget it. Don't ask those questions, you see. Don't ask something that can't be answered, right? Pretend you don't see it, huh? Pretend it's not there. But the true scientist asks. He asks about the anomalies. You see, that's what we do if we are divine scientists. If we are truly divine scientists, we ask about the anomalies. We're interested. You see, the extraordinary scientist is interested not so much in the ordinary, in the present paradigm. He scrutinizes the present paradigm to find the anomalies. He wants to find the anomalies, the apparent discrepancies. I probably should have defined anomaly, because an anomaly is an apparent discrepancy, something that doesn't fit into the whole picture, you see, of the present understanding, present model, doesn't agree with that paradigm. And so you had this small body of individuals who did that and wouldn't leave that question of order alone. They really pursued it to such a degree that they were actually castigated by the normal scientists, by the ordinary scientists or the normal scientists, and were considered to be off the wall. One is very often considered to be off the wall when you are on the verge of seeing something new, something that hasn't been seen before. If you dare to raise in the present paradigm the possibility that there might be something more, you're often thought to be off the wall. And it's a great point of, differentiation, of separating the men from the boys, as you would say. When that particular set of circumstances comes in and there is a very clear line of demarcation being formed between one paradigm and another, between the present paradigm and a newly emerging paradigm of understanding. And you see, each 1,000-year period presents us with a new paradigm of understanding. Is everyone clear about that? With each new 1,000-year period, we have a completely new model of understanding being. So, as we have come to the close of the 6,000-year period and we find ourselves on the verge of the 7,000-year period, we see that a completely new paradigm is coming in. And it's the threshold, really, of that which is absolutely has not been seen before. It hasn't been experienced before. It's a very, very precious place to be. And every science experiences these paradigm shifts. So I was really trying to tell you that was going on in the sciences, and that this question of chaos was a very big question that was becoming more and more pronounced. And because this small body of scientists were so dedicated to that question, there was in fact a tremendous breakthrough in the understanding of order, really universally. That which seemed to be off the wall very soon was seen to be something that was so profound that it was likened to the greatness, the bigness of quantum physics. It's said to have been a breakthrough on the scale of quantum physics. Not that those two, I'm comparing those two, but the bigness of it, the profoundness of it, the ability of it to change a whole worldview. It changes a whole worldview. And so they developed that science, and the whole world really has been moved forward in the evolution of understanding order, of understanding what order is. Well, I was just hesitating there because I said, that the whole world has moved forward, sounding really as though everyone threw their hats in the ring and said, whoopee, okay, let's go with it, a whole new sense of order and everything. But we have to realize that that's a development, and that you always have those few scientists, the old scientists, who are still left lingering in their old paradigm, and that sort of hang around and lag behind the extraordinary scientists. That's what Kuhn calls them. He calls them extraordinary scientists versus just ordinary or normal scientists. I hope I have that terminology correct, but you can check Thomas Kuhn and his really stellar exposition on the structure of scientific understanding and its revolution. It's interesting, too, that, in comparing these two types of scientists, the ordinary or the normal scientist with the extraordinary, that the ordinary scientist is constantly consumed with and concerned with scrutinizing the problems of the present paradigm, whereas the extraordinary scientist is concerned with scrutinizing the paradigm itself. He constantly scrutinizes the whole paradigm, you see, to detect those anomalies, and on the basis of the anomalies is able to see that which is further and higher. It's all about the evolution of understanding and a structural revolution of paradigm. Yeah, well, I have to share that with you. You know, he explains how a paradigm shift comes about, that the status quo is challenged by an extraordinary scientist in that field. And, you know, I think you and I were talking, Dorothy, and you were saying that it's that status quo is when everyone feels, okay, now we've been working a long time here, and we've got a real grasp now. We've got a real hold on everything. We've covered the whole field. We know all the answers, and there aren't any other answers to be seen. There aren't any other questions. There aren't any other answers. We have comprehensively the whole package here. And then along comes the extraordinary scientist and says, well, what about this, you see? And so you can see that the reaction is, oh, now, just take a back seat, huh? Just don't bring that up. It's not a real question. That isn't a legitimate question. And there is that tendency to hold back to the old science as it is established, and to really lose that beautiful sense that there's something more. There's something more that hasn't been seen. What can it be? What is it that we haven't seen? And it will be the anomalies in that field, in that body of science, in that body of information and understanding, that will show you, that will point out what is missing, what hasn't been seen yet. And we need that, and we need to be extraordinary scientists. We need to have that openness of love that welcomes that loves that doesn't feel upset by that, you see. That doesn't feel like, oh, you're trying to upset the whole apple cart, or you're trying to be original, or you're trying to see something that hasn't been seen when everything else has been seen, you see. So it's a very, very big point for us not to feel that we have to constantly guard our vested interests, that we have a vested interest. You see, the ordinary scientist, the normal scientist, has a vested interest in everything that he has invested in that previous paradigm. And it's this that the human mind doesn't want to let go of. Often we wonder, well, what will others think of us if we dare to say something that hasn't been said before? If we dare to think something that hasn't been thought before, or to suggest that there might be something further, you see, this can be considered. Every science undergoes this. The scientists in every science are faced with these questions because we want to be comfortable, you see. The human mind wants to be comfortable, and it doesn't want to endanger those vested interests. But the extraordinary scientist doesn't care. He only cares about the science and not about what others will think of him. So that's a big one. And you know, these things are not personal. We've said they go on in all the sciences. It goes on in the science of being. It's really that which determines the thread of the science of being. We know that John Dorley went through that very same experience, that he dared to take a stand with the established paradigm of the Mother Church, and to say that there is something more that you are not seeing, not acknowledging, not teaching, not giving the field, the understanding of what the textbook is all about, namely the scientific understanding of Christian Science through its categories, through the understanding of the 7 and the 4 and the 4. So he was a prime, beautiful example of that extraordinary scientist that came in and didn't care what people said about him and what they thought about him, or didn't care if 50% of his students dropped away or 70% said you're off the wall or whatever. It doesn't matter, because when you're a scientist, you only care about science. He only cared about science, and because of that, the whole field is blessed. The whole world is blessed because of that. So Max Kepler is another example of an extraordinary scientist that was willing to develop the new paradigm, a new paradigm of understanding the textbook. A completely new paradigm that no one would have thought of. They wouldn't have dreamt of it. Who would have dreamt that there was a deep structure? And not just a surface structure that you read in an atomistic way. It was a completely new paradigm. To see that the textbook was a complete and whole structure, that you couldn't take it in little bits and pieces, that it had to be seen holistically, that it had a deep structure that determined the surface structure, that it had implications for every individual consciousness, for every individual Christian Scientist. You know, we could spend a week just talking about the implications and the ramifications of what it means to be an extraordinary scientist in such a field as the science of being, let alone any other field. So we've gotten a bit far afield, but somehow it's all about spirit because it's all about evolution, and true evolution being spiritual. And that as we are true to that evolution and go with that evolution, that this is the way that understanding establishes itself. This is the way understanding evolves itself on a level that is dealing with states and stages of time, you see. So we have that breaking in, we have that coming in. It's order itself that breaks in and insists that we become more ordered, and that we have an ever higher and higher understanding of what spirit is. We never can reach a status quo, you see. We're not allowed to. Spirit doesn't allow that. It's an impact, an influx of evolution, as we will see. And it's right there. We're looking at the A, and you see that spirit is bringing more progress then, more newness, improvement in the sciences, improvement in our understanding. It brings success, the success of spirit. Spirit doesn't want you to stay in the same place and keep going around and around in mortal circles. You know that saying, blessed are they that go around in circles, for they shall be known as big wheels. Sorry. So that success of spirit is to be moved forward, to ever be advanced, to advance in our way of understanding. Yes. So spirit comes in as spiritual unfoldment, spiritual evolution, development, and And we have there even spiritual supply. Meaning is relational, and so that spiritual supply means what? What does Spirit supply us with? What does it supply us with? Order. Order. It keeps on giving us more order. That's the supply of Spirit, and it's the substance of Spirit translated right to what we need. We need a spiritual evolution to take us completely out of the material concept. Mm-hmm. And then we come to the Christ, Spirit as the Christ, and we see that Spirit is constantly coming and breaking in with what? With the strength of Spirit. Strength is really power in expression. When one is dealing with in the realm of time and space, or dealing with an opposite, or having to move forward in an evolution, we need the strength of Spirit to do that. Spirit comes as the positive, you see. It brings the good. There we are. There we have the translated form of the fact that Spirit is good. Now it brings the good. Whenever you have the good, you have the positive. Never anything negative with that which is good. And it's good coming to the human condition, the human consciousness. Nothing negative can ever break in on us from above.